Hi, I'm Marty Grisani, and this is The Marty Grisani Show. As a full-time real estate investor and business owner, I have a real fascination of finding the key principles for business success and personal development. This show is a reflection of my personal mission to find out what truly makes somebody successful in business and in life. We will find tools and tactics that they've used to reach those levels. If you're the type of person is not satisfied with average and you have a hunger for learning that will never cease, this show is for you. Welcome to the show. Yeah, like I was mentioning, Todd, it's always nice to talk to somebody else who has a very unique last name. And, whenever you say, oh, Grisani, is that Irish? Haha, it's like, yes, it's Irish, brother.
I went to Aquinas as a kid. It was always the Italian and the Irish, right? And I had the French last name, so I didn't fit into either of them. I struggled with both of them.
That's right. Exactly.
I had the Irish red hair, but the French last names. It's very confusing for people.
No one knew what to do with you.
They didn't.
No one knew what to do with you. And that's probably why you pick such a unique career now. Unique guy, creative, right? And this is kind of unique because you're actually the first episode of the newly rebranded residential to commercial R2C. And I'm really excited to talk to you because you're somebody who, been doing this for so long, since 1997. Not that you haven't been in real estate before that, but you transitioned into some of the larger stuff in 97 with your partner. But it's just always nice to talk to somebody who started in residential and then moved into commercial. Because a lot of my viewers, my journey is right now in that transition going from residential to commercial. So I'm really excited to talk to you as someone who has. And guys, for those who don't know, Todd is the owner of Metro Falls. It's everything, management, development, ground up. I mean, they've really done it all from large office, adaptive use. They do, large commercial multifamily. And I'm really excited to talk about some of the projects. And again, for people that are here in Rochester, it's always nice to kind of hear from people who, you maybe not see a lot of times, people that are kind of stay in their lane and just crush it, but you wouldn't really know about it. Like you drive by a building and be like, oh shit, I didn't know that was Todd's at Metro Falls. That's really freaking cool, right? So really excited, Todd, if you could just give us a little bit of background on kind of who you are and where you're from and what you're doing.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for reaching out to me and, asking me to come on. So, I'm one of those guys, I for years, I've just, you labor in obscurity like most of us really do. And, I over the years, I sort of likened, our little company is almost more of a garage band, right? You play all the local scene and everybody's like, what? And then you have that one hit. Everybody goes, look at those guys, overnight success, right?
Oh, yeah.
How do they do that? and then you're back to playing the clubs again. So that's pretty much us. And, we're Rochester, born and raised here. And I was fortunate at a very young age. I was exposed to people, one individual particularly that inspired me to get interested in real estate. And, I was never the A student. I was always the B student. Sometimes I was the C+ student and I sold it real hard as a C+, right? I was more interested in being out in the world and working and figuring things out. That interested me way more than sitting in a classroom. And I'm sure there's lots of people out there like me.
No doubt.
I didn't sit well in a classroom all day. And that's really what led me, to this path. And, I would say I'm fortunate because in my early years, I sort of struggled my way to it. I knew I wanted to get here. And then once I got here, you just sort of go. And you mentioned early on in 97, that's sort of a critical point for us, 1997. We were very young. We had an opportunity to grow our business very aggressively. I had a partner who I still do a ton of business with, who he and I at the time were, I think we were 29 years old. And probably at that time running over 200 apartments between Rochester and Buffalo, and really did a good job. And, a lot of inner city at the time. And we were making our way into, different neighborhoods and trying different different business models out. And, without just boring you to death, that was really, the start of, you said your journey. I started there, and it's really just been year after year after year of just being willing to change and try different things and self-evaluation and, is this working? And don't be afraid if it's not working. Don't be afraid to say, this is not working. We got to do something else, because you won't survive if you don't say that. If you just hang on and you grind yourself right down to the bottom, you're going to find yourself ground down at the bottom.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. I love hearing that, because I think a lot of times people, like you said, they think it's a overnight success. It just took me, 10, 15 years to get there. Right.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because, and guys, I want you to listen to this for people that are listening too. It's like we had 200 units and, it's just you two kind of managing everything. Is that right?
We were, we had some subs and we brought people in, but in terms of the oversight and running it, it was really just us. And it was a lot of hours in the field. And then for me, it was a lot of hours in the office after, and weekends in the office, trying to, make sense out of the revenue and, learn the accounting side of it. And, I had some good support at the time. But I was doing the work.
You mentioned something earlier, and I'm 100% with you. How critically important is a mentor, right?
Incredibly important.
So that individual changed your career in a way, like for me, it's what I like to call an unfair advantage, right? It's an unfair advantage. You're around those people. So like having that proximity, I believe, is 100% power.
It really is.
What was like the message for you? Was it kind of like that rich dad, poor dad kind of thing, that they were like, you're working for money, or you can, there's real estate where it's passive. Like, why was it real estate? Was that something that individual was doing?
Yeah. So that individual at an age when I'll go back to being about 12 or 13 years old, I was exposed to the renovation side of that business. And as this person's as this person transitioned through the business, I sort of transitioned with him in his own business model until I was able to go out on my own and try it. And, it was a great springboard for me. It was a great launching pad. But, what I never got, and I'm thankful I never got it, I never had anything really given to me. What I did have was opportunity. And I say that over and over again. And that's, I think, what a mentor does do, is provide opportunity and then provide you with their 2 cents about it. You do with it is up to you. And that's critical. No one handed me the keys to something and said, well, here you go, start making some money. I never got that. I paid for everything that we have. And, even though you have a mentor, you still have to make the deal, and you still have to show up for work the next day. And you're almost expected to do it more than if you didn't, right? Because now there is some extra accountability, because that mentor's invested themselves in you. So you have some accountability to that person.
100%. Feels like there's skin in the game from that person, and more so that you don't want to just fail on your own, but you don't want to fail because this person put so much time in it.
Correct. And, I'll say this, my son and daughter are working with me in the business now, which is fantastic. They're awesome. In their early mid-20s. And my son came to me his last year of college, and said, Dad, I think I want to be in the real estate business. And part of me was heartbroken, because I'm like, oh my God, you're just going to suffer. And that was all I was always told that. And I'm still told that to this day by the guy who taught me the business. We'll have lunch and he'll say, tell me the one thing I said you would do. And I said, suffer. And he goes, that's it. You'll suffer. So I knew that's part of it.
It's incredible.
You're just going to suffer. But I was also excited. And I said, if you're going to make this transition, you have to look, I will probably take on somewhat of a mentor role where I can. But you're going to start in the field, and you're going to start out where the decisions are made and where it's dirty and where it isn't pretty. And, that's what real estate is, really. It's not collecting rent and playing golf. That is not real estate.
It really isn't. And you're so right. That word suffering is so true. And it's actually what I would say, it's more of, because it's the growth of yourself in the business. It's painful because you're growing, and it's always got to be that way, or you start to just flatline or go down. So it's one of those things where it's like it's a good suffering, but it's still painful. Yeah. Just like growing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You sort of like, how you grow to the size of your shell, and then you shed that shell, and then you're going to grow a new one. And that it just sort of happens. I don't think it's anything that you really take stock in while it's happening. It just, some years go by and you look back and you go, wow, we owned that, or we developed that, or remember when we owned that, and remember when that place burned and it was 3:00 in the morning, and you go through all those things, and then that creates that new shell. and with new experiences. And then, you sort of outgrow that at some point, and the new shell slowly takes over.
I want to talk to you about Highfalls because
Yeah.
you do have such a big footprint there.
Do.
And so I love that area a lot. And I feel like that's like the hidden, still kind of hidden, like it shouldn't be, but it's still hidden. So tell me a little bit about some of the buildings you have there. And because there's some beautiful, you guys have done some beautiful work with those buildings. So like the Gorsling building and is it the Parazin building? Is that how you pronounce it?
Parazin building, 4 Commercial Street, the Gorsline building. We own the centers at Highfalls. We bought that back in 2015. And, all of those, this is how I always describe this, because everybody always says, oh, you own cool stuff, right? It is really like owning the 57 Chevy in the garage, right? You pull up the garage door and people go, whoa, you own that, right? But you got to fix it, and you got to make it work, and you got to find the right part that makes it right. Restoration masons, certain types of roof, everything's it's twitchy and it's interesting and it's quirky, but beautiful, truly beautiful. And really really what Rochester's history, I believe that Highfalls area is really what Rochester's history is.
No doubt.
And, we're fortunate. We have, Rock the Riverway has brought a lot of money to the river. And at the base of Highfalls is going to be the new state park. And that is well underway right now. I met engineers there this morning that are in the Trip Hammer Forge next to our building. And, you can really start to feel the momentum and the interest, at least behind the scenes, the meetings that, what people do. And this is, I'm going to sort of tie this into your Highfalls question. And you'll probably be able to relate to this, and anybody listening will relate to this. You buy into a neighborhood, you see something cool in a neighborhood, and the first thing that, at least in Rochester, the first thing that people say is, we want to be the next Park Avenue.
Right.
Well, you're never going to be the next Park Avenue.
Right. No doubt.
Because Park Avenue is Park Avenue.
Yep.
And it organically became Park Avenue. And so to try to make the next little neighborhood Park Avenue, I don't know, forget it.
Right.
It's going to have to be what it's going to have to be. Well, Highfalls is cool because Highfalls is what it is. It already has a personality. It's got a character. And although we've suffered with, I believe, sort of being forgotten in Highfalls, right? You drive right by it. WXXI is on the front, the big parking garage is on the front. You whip down State Street and you don't even think Highfalls is there.
No doubt.
Until you turn in and you look and you go, wow, where'd all this come from? Right? And we've suffered through COVID, we've suffered through the same vacancy and the same issues and the same restaurant problems. And, we're not really any different than any other parts of the city, but we now are really embracing this park, and the park is below us. We're going to be the entrance to the park. It's very exciting. It really is.
I'm excited for the city. I'm excited for Highfalls because I really believe for those who don't have been there, in the last 10, 15 years, or that's really, you should, and just go for a jog down there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's one of my favorite places to go. And I really think that more people just need to see it. I just don't think that you hear about it. I think it's just, it's that one thing that I believe that you're right. That park, you get a brewery somewhere in that area at some point, whatever it might be.
And I believe things have to just happen, right? So the park is one thing. We've got like La Luna in our space and doing the events. We found a new artist group that's been very interested in Highfalls. They just found us and they've started to entrench. I'm really excited about that because that's fun for people.
Absolutely.
That brings a whole new vibe and it's really finding itself. We've created housing in Highfalls. Our first test run at that was probably back in 2016 when we finished, after we had purchased the centers of Highfalls. The neat thing about that building was, if anybody remembers it, it was a ton of common space. Like it was impressive. So you walk through it and you're like, wow, this is really beautiful space. And then 9 o'clock at night, you're sitting there in the dark going, what am I going to do with all this common space? Like, how am I going to pay the bills with all this common space? So that was the challenge, was to take the common space and start dividing it up into usable space. So we took this banquet room. It was called the Seneca Room. And it was 2 floors tall, had big windows. It was really neat. And we said, well, we're not going to run banquets in here. We're probably not going to rent the room out, every other day for $500. I just don't see that being my deal.
Right.
So we inside the space, we built 2 apartments that are 2 floors.
Wow.
So you take the elevator up, You get a nice hallway, you walk in, and then you walk into 2 individual apartments, bedrooms, walk-in closets upstairs, first floor living rooms, views, balconies, big kitchens, high-end, amazing. We had them rented before we had them built.
Wow. I
So the
love that.
Paradigm building across the street, we're really taking that same approach. You know, my wife and I lived there a couple of years ago, and we were in between houses and we stayed there. And it's kind of fun living in your own inventory because you find out what you really like about it and you find out what you don't like about it.
Interesting.
And we didn't have big enough closets, and we didn't, you know, it was great, I guess, if I was 25, but, you know, being a mature man and a wife with clothes, we just realized you could live here temporarily, but you really couldn't live here permanently. So back in 19, we had started a conversion on the first floor we had about 4,000 square feet, and it went empty. Tough space to rent. I said, this is the time. Let's convert this to housing. And during what, as everybody knows, during 19 into 20, COVID hits, right? So everything just slows down, stops. During that time, we redesigned those apartments.
Perfect.
They're giant. They're almost 2,000 square feet apiece. And we're just, hopefully we're going to have the first one done. I'd like to have it on the market by February.
Oh, excellent.
And each bedroom could have king size beds, huge kitchens, islands, living rooms. So you could sell your house in Brighton if you want to live urbanly. You could sell your house in Brighton, and you don't have to be on that TV show that I'd love to start on HGTV that says from 3,000 square feet to 1,000 square feet in 30 days.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
You can come live here and really bring most of your stuff and have walk-in closets and bring your dining room table, but yet have all the best. So we built 2 apartments instead of building 4 in this space. We're testing it. We're going to see how it works. But you want to live urbanly and you don't want to live in a home anymore, we've got the place for you. Storage, a gym, high-end features. You know, we didn't skimp. And, you know, we're hoping that this hits the market. We only need 2 people to like it.
Right.
And, right. I mean, we don't need like 50 people to like it. We need 2. So, you know, we're hoping we're going to find 2, and that's going to play off what we built over at centers across the street. And, you know, we're going to start to create a network and build more of those units in down there and create that type of community. That's what it needs.
I love it. I love it. And why are you like, where did you get have you always had like a creative, like visionary kind of type of?
Too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too much.
Okay.
Yeah. So my wife is an accountant. She's a CPA. Details, man, I'll tell you, right? I'm the guy, if you want to move the rock from way over there to way over there, and you only got 3, and how are we going to do it? I'm that guy. Yep. I'm going to get that done for you. And that's how it really works with all the creative ideas. I love the creativity. And then once you get the creative idea out there, how are we going to boil this down now so we can actually do it? Not lose the creative side of it.
Right.
Because in that process, that boiling down, that distilling it, that, you know, the excitement of drawing it out and saying it's going to look like this, and then you put the heat to it and you boil off the water and you're left with the salt, the creativity gets gone.
Yep.
You eliminate it. You burn it off, and then you're like, well, we really can't do what we thought. So we're going to do this.
Right.
And I try very hard not to do that. I try to say, okay, let's stick with what we talked about. Let's find ways to do what we talked about. And that's a lot of my emphasis and my motivation on all of our projects, no matter how small they are. Let's be true to the building. Let's be true to the character of the building. Let's, you know, what can we, let's not force something in here. What wants to be in here?
That's so good. Todd, and I'll tell you it's so good, but guess what? I can already tell that thought process is also very expensive.
It is.
Right? That thought process is very expensive. So,
you can't do it with everything, Marty.
Got it.
Right? You pick a few and you do it. And then you have a lot of other ones that you're really super practical on.
Got it. Okay. Because I love that. Right. Exactly. Because I love that. But then I'm like, so we don't have to talk about those specific deals, but I'm curious, like financing wise, when you're looking at a project, is this something where, because we're moving into commercial, so we're thinking, okay, are we syndicating? Are we, you know, what are we doing? Are we going to be raising money? Is it something that we're going to be then something we're doing through a couple of just our local friends? Like, do you syndicate, or is it more of just like, what's like the model you have partnerships with banks? Like, what's the financing that's always been best for you guys?
That's a really good question. Again, we've been lucky. We have not taken on, you know, a lot of partners. we work within a small group of us.
Got it.
And, some of the guys that, I partner with currently where I need to, they're my seniors. So they're invested, they're on board, they're interested, but they leave the day-to-day operation to us.
Absolutely.
And that's nice.
Yep.
I'm not partnering with a lot of chiefs, certainly with guys that know what they're talking about. So in that vein, we've been fortunate because I haven't had to syndicate. And I've avoided that. And, my wife will tell you back in the day that really what I wanted everything paid for. And I wanted, less was more for me at a time. And I'm probably getting back to that even now, where as much as we're little fish in a little pond. We really are. There's guys, Morgan and Buckingham. These guys are just way bigger than us. And, to think that I would ever, that I aspire to be them or that I'm going to be them, we are who we are. I always fashion us as a boutique real estate company. We're small. We like interesting projects. We don't buy everything. We buy what really hits us in the right spot and where there's also opportunity. So, getting back to the financing side of that, I'm conventional. It's nice to go in with 20, 30, 40% down and leverage the difference. We're not afraid to use a line of credit because we've got equity and, refinance out on the other side. We do a lot of that. We don't give our ownership away, and we like to stay in control.
It's a great way to protect equity. It's a great way to make sure
not a good way to grow.
But if that's not what your end goal is, right? If that's not your vision, then fine, right? I'm with that 100%. Like if you can just make sure that, hey, this is just something that's a debt and not equity, then that's a win for us, right? As developers and owners. The way that we're positioning, again, maybe when you were back at 30, maybe it would be a little different, right? Maybe it would be a little different. Hey, we want to explode a little bit more. But yes, it's very interesting. I like that approach. You're keeping the equity. You guys are still the owners. You guys are the GPs. There might be some limited partners in there, but you're making the decisions, and they probably like it that way, Todd, right?
Well, they do. Yeah, they do. I'm not partnering with guys that are, 30, 20, 30, 40 years old. I'm partnering with guys that are, 20 years older than me. And the partners that I take on that are my age are active, but they have a specific function in the partnership.
Love that.
And that's important too. All partnerships are fraught with some level of risk and you're always reevaluating that, but you've got to have your strengths in the partnership. You've got to be able to bring people on that are going to complement what you do and not make it more difficult to do what you do.
No, and that's right on. And that's actually bringing me to another property that I'm very interested in, because I know you partnered on, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but a beautiful, unbelievable 2017 built, the Strathmore Apartments in Amherst, right?
Oh yeah. So Amherst. Yep. So, we bought that. It was a partnership, and we built that back in 2014, 2015, and then sold it internally. And then we stayed on as managers.
Love it.
So, I was part of that group that built it. I was part of the process there. They had all of its own pitfalls and risks, and, you wondered why you were doing it when you were doing it.
Yeah.
It's funny how far back, 2014 or 15, 16, when it all got done, it's like, I guess I'm told it's like childbirth, right? You
100%.
It's the pain of it. You sort of forget.
Yeah.
And my mother always told me that, right? You forget. That's why you have another one. So, but we got into Pinebrook Apartments in Honeyway Falls, the village of Honeyway Falls. So that,
love those.
Again, into new build and into all of the growth and all of the painful parts of developing, right? All the unknowns, the finances, the cash flow issues, the municipalities, the GC. We were lucky. We got in with in the end we had Home Leasing become our general contractor there, and great group of people, love them, and it turned out to be great friends. And, we built our first phase, and then we were completing it just as COVID was coming in. And I thought for sure it was the death of us, right?
Right.
I just thought these buildings, we had 42 apartments that we were empty on, coming out with, the governor shutting down everything. And it was weird how it played into our hand because we were suburban. We weren't urban.
Interesting.
We filled up so quickly down there during this time frame. I just didn't expect it. Luck. That's all that was.
Well, preparation and opportunity, right?
An opportunity. Yep.
And so that was 150 something units.
So 112 right now. We're building the last phase. We're hoping as we just get on the other side of the winter here, we're going to start the last phase, and then we'll be 156 apartments there.
Unbelievable. So tell me a little bit about that, right? So is that where, do you come in with a partnership on that? And because again, we're coming at it from, hey, we had a couple, 70, 80 units that were, selling off. We've been flipping. That's been great. And as we're transitioning to everyone that a lot of people that I talk to that have had a lot of success, have done it through ground up, right? Yeah. They're like, that's been a big game changer for us. All right. So when you're looking at that, are you looking at the land? Like, are you bringing the land in? Are you coming in as like, well, no, I understand how to build. I'm just curious, how does somebody come in as a partner on something like that? And maybe what was your role in that play?
Well, that's I don't know that I can answer that question so succinctly because every project is a little bit different, right? And the group of us that got involved there, we all had different roles, right? We all contributed a certain amount. We all had, we're the managers of it. Our company manages.
So that was maybe the thing of like, you guys are going to manage this. Like you came in as like, got it. That was like the main point of, you are going to end up managing this. So that's
in the end, we're going to invest in this. Everybody's going to sign on the dotted line. We're going to GC it with, we're going to oversee the GC. We're going to get this built and we're going to get this stabilized. And we have done that aspect very well.
Love it.
And it's sort of like drinking from a fire hose sometimes. You just can't, there's just so much that comes at you. And we are so small that you wear a lot of hats every day. And so to tell you, exactly how, like every deal is different, right? Amherst building Strathmore was a lot different than building Pinebrook. And I'm thankful that the guys I'm building Pinebrook with are guys that I've just been doing business with for years and are great people. And, we got to just sit down and talk about it. They're right there. The door's open. Let's sit down and talk about what we're going to do. They're realistic about, what the problems are, what the solutions are. It's critical. It's just critical if you're going to get a project off the ground.
Yeah, there's two things that really just strike me with that. And number one is partnerships, right? I think sometimes people come in and you hear this a lot, like partnerships, they don't work, or partners are tough to work with. And I'm different. And I love that you're different too, because my partner has been one of the best things ever happened to me. Yeah. Right. And same thing with you. You've been with the same partner. Now I know you have different partnerships with different businesses that you guys are doing, but I think if you can have somebody that's also just like you being a visionary and maybe somebody is like the implementer, and then also at the same time, I think the knockout punch is having a wife that's a CPA accountant.
She's killer. Let me tell you. Thank God I got her.
Yeah, banks like that. Banks like to see things that
are. Well, they like accuracy, right? Exactly. If they say, "Hey, give me a P&L," and they're like, "Did you read this?" I'm like, "Yeah, good." She's like, "Give me that, right? Let me look at that before you send that out." Exactly. So it's important, right? So I tend to be, and I probably realized this very recently in the last 3 to 5 years, right? I sort of developed my own sense of who I am, but I really am a collaborator. I enjoy that. I don't like being in isolation on a project. I don't like being in a vacuum and convincing myself of whatever it is that I need to convince myself of. And then, when you open the door and you go out in the real world, you're like, wow, the idea seems so great when we were in there. But now that I'm out here talking about it, it doesn't seem so good anymore. I really enjoy, like on the Mill Street project, I enjoy the collaboration with not just 1 or 2 people, but 4 or 5 people. I want to hear what they have to say.
Yes.
I want to hear their idea. Yeah, I just can't know all of it, right? Yes, it's my project. Yes, I will probably in the end, either somebody's going to say, wow, Todd did a great project, or it's horrible. So I'll be the guy that gets the credit, or I'll be the guy that takes the abuse if it doesn't come out well, right?
Yes.
But through that process, so many people have other things to contribute, ways to look at it that I don't see. And I really like that. I mean, it's that to me is interesting to have somebody bring something new to the table that I didn't think about.
Yeah, no doubt.
Somewhere else. And I think in partnerships, whether you're just collaborating or you actually have, a formality with someone that's a partner, you've got to find people that are going to bring something else to the table and complement you. Larry has been a longtime partner of mine, and we've gone through a lot of changes and a lot of growth over the years. Larry's a hands-on guy, and me, I'm more of the get out and make it happen and come up with the systems and get to the tenants and get the space leased up. But you know what? When the AC unit breaks, Larry's going to be able to reach on there and tell you what the problem is. Right? I'll figure it out, but Larry's going to get there a lot quicker than me. Right. And so, we complement each other that way. If you had me under AC units all day, right.
Yeah. It's just, that's not where your best use of time is for the company. Right.
It's not. The growth has been you got to grow and you got to steer the ship. And I've been able to take that role and, figuring out where the opportunities are. So,
that's really good. And cause again, the second thing was the, relationships and just how important those are. And money is great, but gosh, if you lost it all, right, you'd be like, well, I have these relationships and I can always go back to the same people because I know, right? And it's like how just in real estate, I just want to make it a point for people listening, just how important relationships are, and where it's like coming in, I was a little bit of, cause I was a sales guy and I'm still am, but it's sometimes you think a little transactionally because you see it, like you got a deal coming in, deal. And what I'm really, it's good hearing it from you too, and from other people that I talk to that are very successful, that are years ahead of me, like you are, just so super successful. Is that the relationships are really what was a big driver for the company? Is that true to say?
It is. I mean, I made a comment. I've got at one of our projects now, I'm working with a longtime friend of mine who's handling the construction side, and he's just got a lot of years of experience like we do in his field. And we got stumped. There was an issue that came up, and within about 5 or 6 minutes, we in a few phone calls, we were able to get past the problem, find somebody to help us. And I got home that night and I texted them and I said, isn't it nice when you can pick up the phone and call somebody and they don't go, who are you? Like, are you going to pay me? Or right? You don't have those conversations. The conversation is, hey, I have a problem. Here's what my problem is. And he says, well, I have a solution. I could be there Tuesday. We're there. We're talking about Tuesday and how we're going to get past the problem. We're not talking about, God, I hope this guy's going to want to work for us. He doesn't. Right. Right. And that all comes from the relationship side. And so it's really being able to pick up the phone and get to somebody and get something done.
It's a game changer.
It is. It really is. Because, when you're 20, you just don't have that. You don't. You got a few friends maybe in the business, and they've got friends, or their dad knows somebody, right?
Right.
But, you want to grow yourself into the point where your phone, your contact list is full of people that when you hit that button, they're going to take your call and they're going to want to help you.
So
and vice versa.
So
when they call you, you're going to give them your time and you're going to want to help them, and it's critical. Because we just wouldn't function on a daily and weekly basis without having that ability.
How important is management having that in-house, right? Like it's
huge for us. Huge.
Okay. So go into that. Cause a lot of people, they'll say, Marty, I want to buy these properties, these small or, larger multifamily. And especially if you're going to be adding value to them, right? Like there's no way. And let me know, like, first of all, management and your take on that. And the second is it's almost impossible to, if there's a value add project, that you can buy that and hand that off to a property manager. Is that fair to say? True?
Yeah, you can't do that. So the value, you bring the value. Owning it and managing it yourself, you bring the value. You're walking through the hallways, you're seeing the problems, you're finding the solutions, you're overcoming the objections, whether it's a new tenant coming in. And I'm big on that with my salespeople. My site managers, that's a big thing. And I talk a lot about overcoming the objection, right? Identify the objection immediately, and figure out what it is. And let's get over it. How do we fix it? Talk to me about it, right? And we've done enough, my phone doesn't ring as much as it used to because of right? We sort of figured out how to overcome those objections, but let's talk about what those are. And when you're managing yourself, you're much closer to figuring out what the objection is. When you're leaving it in the hands of somebody else, not to say that all the management companies are, we're a management company, right? So not to say that they wouldn't do a good job, but you always do I believe you just always do a much better job for yourself in identifying what the issues are, because we're an issue-driven business.
Yes. Yes.
Right. I was telling one of our employees this morning, you've got a very detailed side of this, whether it's the accounting side or the legal side. It's a very detailed side where things have to add up and have to be articulated correctly. And then you've got this creative sort of side that attracts people. It makes people want to be part of your development, your community, your ideas, right? And then you got to marry those two things. And they're hard to marry, because your lawyer wants to see it one way, your accounting staff needs to see it another way, and you're the guy out in the field trying to get the job done. Right. To get the sales, right? To get the revenue stream to come in, because as far as you know, right, it's all about the revenue stream. We wouldn't be talking about this if we couldn't keep the money coming in.
Yes.
So the revenue is almost paramount. You've got to get the money to flow. Got to have that faucet on with the money. And if it stops, what are you going to do?
Yeah. And that's one of the tough things as we look at other different real estate, I guess, models and niches. And, one of the things that I wanted your opinion on is, you have that office building but that's also the one that's on
Exchange?
The Aqueduct.
Yeah. Cool building.
Yeah. I love what's going on there. And, it's funny. Way before I ever, and guys, by the way, the reason why Todd and I are on the phone is because I cold called him about something else.
I want to buy some of my real estate, right?
Yeah, I wanted to buy some of his real estate, but then I saw what he owned, and I go, I got to get you on the show. You got to tell people, your story. For those of the people that don't know, the Aqueduct building is like one of my favorites. It's 65,000 square feet. It's gigantic, super big, Class A.
Well, so it's 44 Exchange Boulevard. So it sits right in the corner of Exchange and Broad.
Yep.
And the Times Square buildings across one corner, Blue Cross Arena's on the other. Is a really interesting corner. And a decade ago, when this building was being converted from empty office. And I did not do that development. I was part of the management team. I was involved in it, but I didn't actually execute that development. But luckily, just because we were there, we were able to run it, evolve with it. We then had the opportunity to own it.
Love it.
So, we've influenced the whole project, and it's great to actually, have it. But that neighborhood 10 years ago wasn't the neighborhood it is today.
No doubt.
Potentially the neighborhood that it is today. The City Hall building, just around the corner from us is being renovated. Look what Constellation Brands is doing behind us.
I was going to ask you, when you saw that move occur, how happy, just were you like, this is amazing? Did they even approach you? I'm assuming.
Yeah. They came to, when Pete Landers called me to introduce himself, and I had a chance to walk through the building when they first bought it and hear all their ideas, and their ideas have changed. I'm thrilled that it's going to be what it's going to be, and they're just doing a beautiful job. Just watching this project.
The windows alone are something.
Yeah, I almost went into cardiac arrest when I found out what was going to happen there. What a great neighbor.
Yeah.
Just location.
No doubt.
What a great neighbor, and all the new work that's going to happen to the aqueduct, and we're going to be street level all of a sudden. So it's all sort of coming to us there. We got in early. And, it's hard renting to tenants when they say, hey, what's around here? I want to walk to dinner. And you're like, well, you can walk around the corner to Dinosaur.
Right.
That's a walk.
Yep.
Or you can walk into Cornhill to something. That's a bit of a walk. There's nothing right there you could walk to. I have a feeling over the next couple of years, nothing happens quick, right?
Real estate. Not in real estate.
Fast. It's a process. But I think over the next couple of years, you're going to see a lot of small restaurants, cafes, and services spring up, because there's going to be such a demand with so many people back into that corner again. And we're going to be right in the middle.
I'm super excited for you about that, because first of all, it's so good for Rochester.
Great for Rochester.
It's great. And it's great for people that take a chance on properties like that. You didn't have to buy that 10 years ago or whatever it was. And if anything, that was probably a pretty big, maybe a question mark. Like, there wasn't a for sure that was going to turn out to how it did.
Correct. When we bought that was not happening at Constellation. None of that was happening when we bought that. And Lawyers Co-op had moved out. It was scary. You start thinking, geez, what's going to happen here?
100%.
And are we Is it always just going to be this, or are we going to move past this?
Mm.
And it doesn't matter how many good things, like I do like to be a leader. I do like to put my money where my mouth is. I don't wait for other people to make a move. I like to make the move.
Yes.
Right. So no matter what, we were going to continue to make moves there and try to inspire at least that the corner was well taken care of and we were in charge. That was going to happen no matter what. Right. But it's nice to have other stakeholders come in that are doing the exact same thing. It's just such a safety in numbers, right?
Yes.
At that level, it's such a safety in numbers there. So I just feel really positive about it. I just don't know how it cannot not be a good thing. How it's trending in the right direction, right?
No
it's
doubt.
It's moving in the right direction. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, it's super cool because it's right next to another buddy of mine, Matt Drew, and he was on the show. He bought the Wilder building, and it's just a lot of great things are happening over there. So I'm really excited, and we need more. I was having when I talked to Ken Glazer, I was like, listen, we need more companies though coming in. Like, I think it's great. Yes. Constellation is a good start, but I also said, and he didn't really have a response to this because he probably knows them, but I was like, where's Wegmans corporate, right? Where are all these people? Where are they? They should be coming down here. But again, I get it. There's still some things that need to be done. So we'll get through those things. I want to get to the speed round because you've been so great with your time here, and I appreciate you coming on here. This has been awesome, Todd. Really, it really has been. It's been really cool. If there's a metric you can track in your business, maybe it's something you look at weekly, daily, monthly. What is it that you're looking at that you're making sure that you're on top of?
That's a funny question. My wife and I were talking about that on the way home, and there's got to be some correlation, and it's very easy to distill some of this, but there's a revenue stream that comes in, and I like to see that revenue stream always going up. I don't like seeing it going down. I don't like staying flat. We always like to see it ticking up, right? And what is allowing that revenue stream to tick up? What is keeping tenants in place? What is allowing us to get the renewals are always cheaper than turning an apartment over.
No doubt.
Keep somebody in place, get the rent increase, and keep them happy, and provide them with amenities or with services or something to keep them there. And I always want to know what's that correlation between how far can we go and keep people in place and keep people happy versus we've gone too far, we're losing people, right? Because there's the greedy side of real estate, which is, right, I'm interested in the money and the cash flow. Well, it's the lifeblood of the business, like it is any business. And and I know this is a speed round, but I'm just going to get to something here.
I'm good.
We all sort of focus as we grow on who we're going to be in the business. And I've got a lot of guys around me that I would consider hardcore real estate guys, right? Like tough, and I'm glad they're sitting on my side of the table, but they're tough. And I always wonder how I measure up against those guys. Like, am I tough enough? Am I serious enough? Am I creative enough with these guys? And really the reality of that is that, I don't know. I know that I'm me in all this, right? And I'm probably tougher in some cases than they are. And I'm probably not tough enough in some cases, but I'm me. And what satisfaction do I derive out of this business? It's a great business. I work for myself. I probably work harder working for myself than I do punching a clock. Because you're always thinking about it. When you're home on the couch, something's going through your brain.
No doubt.
What are you going to do? And so that correlates to that metric of, so how do I really instill a sense of satisfaction and enjoyment for my tenants, that they really like being there, they feel a sense of community, and they're willing to pay for that? What is that? And where are we going? Because it's not just about that delta there, that when you start making a little bit more money, for me, it's the ability to maintain that asset now. All boats do rise with the tide, but we have more money to maintain the asset. And when you're a good operator, it's nice to know when something breaks, you can replace it.
Yes.
It's nice to know when you have a problem, you can buy your way out of the problem if you have to, right?
Yes.
And that comes with good cash flow. And when you don't have that, you don't have the luxury of making a good decision.
So good, Todd. That's so good, because I've been saying lately, like, you want your landlord to make money. You want your landlord to make money so that they can do the maintenance that's needed at the time, so that they can take care of that unexpected. You don't want the bank taking back a property and then managing it. You don't want that.
It's a tenant that works you over. You give me a rent increase, right? A rent increase, right? $15 rent increase. But with first time the heat breaks, they're going to expect you to come out there and fix the heat.
No doubt.
And you've got to have the money for that, and that's just the reality of looking people in the eye and making them feel good about what they're paying and feel good about the value they're getting. And I'm very interested in that.
Well, I think there's probably a book there where you should write, where there's like, what is that spread? What is that spread that gets people to stay, and also the community and all those
Marty,
things?
I'm big picture. I'll talk about it, but I never even give you to sit down and write about it.
Somebody write this book while I talk about it.
Down. Yeah. I'll proofread it.
So speaking of books in education, is there maybe even, it doesn't even matter if there was a book you just recently read, is there like a podcast, a YouTube, a book that you recommend, even like a business book that you'd recommend?
It's funny that you should ask that. I have never, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but I have never been trendy on reading things that come out that people go, oh my God, you got to read this guy's book about real estate or about money. I really haven't done that. There were two books very early on in my career. My mother actually got them for me because I was leaving a job. I was in sales, and I had made a decision to leave that job and leave a company car and leave all the trappings of the golden handcuffs. And my family is, educated, white collar. You're doing what?
Yeah, I bet.
You're going to go what? And wear a t-shirt and jeans? Hold on a second, right? That was a big conversation in my family about me opting out of that world and getting a pickup truck. And the two books that I read them years ago, and I gave them to my kids to read, were the Millionaire Next Door and The Wealthy Barber.
Millionaire Next Door is great. Never read The Wealthy Barber
book.
Though. Okay.
And The Wealthy Barber. And, both of those are easy read books. And I mean, the easiest books to read, but what you got to take away from those is the concept of what they're saying. And there is no overnight success. What there is years of planning and picking a program and picking a system and doing it. And that's what it is. And it's not wearing it, and it's not driving it, and it's not all those things that people like to do and grandstanding. I mean, me being on this with you is probably the first time that I've really put myself in a situation where I'm in front of anybody. Again, I don't, I drive to work every day in a pickup truck, and I don't pull up in front of my buildings driving something that I might have to explain why I'm raising the rent. I don't do that. And I got a lot of that takeaway from, not just from those books, but it instilled in me and it reinforced in me, yes, you got to be a real person in this. And right, you're playing with people's lives and their livelihoods and where they live. And you want to make a buck doing it, and you want to be successful. And people like to believe that their landlord is successful, although they don't want him to be. They like him, right? They want to know the guy's got something going on. You got to be careful with that. You have to.
No doubt. Well, you know what? I'll say this. Number one, first of all, you saying that you don't do this and this is like the first time, I appreciate you coming on here. Number one. Number two, you're the type of person that needs to be coming on to these things, right? You're the type of person that people that are new that should aspire to be, right? Not the other way around where, and I don't even think that the majority of landlords do the, drive up at their, Maserati and they're outside looking at their thing and, people, like the Scrooge McDuck version of a landlord. I don't think there's that many, just because trust me, there's really not, there's money in here, but it's a slow build.
You got your money somewhere else. If you're driving up in a Maserati, you probably got your money somewhere else.
Exactly. So but you're the type of guy that I think, needs to, so it's great that you're on here. Not that you're going to start a podcast or anything, but if you did, you'd be great at it. Number one, but number two, it's really good to hear these stories from different folks because, first of all, I know this is out of your comfort zone, even though you're killing it, and it wasn't like it was uncomfortable at all. But it's important that people kind of hear your type of story because I think it resonates with a lot of people who want to be like you and who are looking to do stuff like you, but maybe feel like, well, I don't feel like I'm maybe that tough of a guy or that tough of a girl, and it's not that. It's more of just like, hey, this is who I am. I think what the key is, and why maybe one of the big success things that you've had, is that you have a lot of self-realization. And I think knowing yourself and knowing maybe strengths and weaknesses, and that makes sense because you have all these partners, has been a critical driver in your success.
I agree. You know, you've got to look inward. Anything that you do, you've got to look inward. And I'll tell you, you know, if you know, behind closed doors, you want to sit down and get a list of what I'm not good at, I'll tell it to you. Right?
Yeah.
Don't put me on those jobs
Right.
because it's a fail, right? But I'll also tell you what I am good at. Put me on those jobs
Yep.
because I'll get something done.
Yep.
It takes a lot of time to get there, and it takes a lot of time too to be able to say no. And we're still going through that. My wife and I talk about it all the time. You got to say no. Sometimes you just got to say no. You don't have to feel like, right? What's that saying that sometimes the best deal you do is the one you never did?
100%. The one you walk away from, right? The one
my God, walk away from it, right?
Yep.
Forget about it, right? Don't twist your arm trying to find a way to make it happen, and then it's a stone around your neck because you'll own it for the next 10 years.
And we got a few of those.
We had them too.
Right?
We had them too. Devastating. And you wish you never did it, right?
Yep.
But you learn from those, and you learn that, you know, sometimes the sex appeal isn't really, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, you're either winning or you're learning, and we're doing a lot of learning.
That's a good way to
and that's
put it.
good. And that's okay.
Great. That's
what
great.
do you do to intentionally network or maybe mastermind? So, you know, you have these relationships, you have these long-term relationships now. Was it that you made it a point to meet with folks face to face? Did you make it a point to go out of your way to, you know, get coffee with some of these people? Was it,
yeah, a long time ago I did. When
Yep.
I was starting, I was raising capital.
Yep.
And I did do that. You know, I networked and I tried to find people that were interested in what I was doing. And I was really just I was trying to find people that I could borrow money from.
Yep.
And get to know, genuinely get to know, make them part of my story, part of my success, pay them, make them feel like, wow, we actually did well working with this guy. So that was early on. And, you know, now I don't know, like, I don't really have the time for it, truthfully. I run into a lot of people every day. So, you know, treating people fairly, being honest, being direct, and not wasting people's time, sort of that right now, that's sort of my mantra, because I just don't have the time or the bandwidth to try to figure out how I'm going to just network now. You know, what's going to be my next move to know more people? I almost don't want to know more people.
Right. No, that's fair. You know, that's great.
I don't want to know more people. And I don't mean that in any negative way. We just have so much happening that it's like, now I need to know the people that are really going to get me there. Now I just need to know the right people. It's not so much a volume of people, where before it was a volume of people. I don't need a volume of people anymore. I need the right people that believe in what I do, understand what we do, and can participate with me. That's what I need. So I think it's switched. I think so. That question, I can't really give you a fair answer. Like, what do I do to network? And you know, I don't.
Well, I think one of the things that makes sense is, you know, and I can just tell that one of the greatest ways, what I've found in my business, is just doing what you say you're going to do. And that you wouldn't believe how rewarding that is for, like, the contractors you work with. They're like, they can't believe you're really going to pay me when you told me you're going to pay me.
Yeah,
right?
I'm going to pay you. Like, when you get done within 3 days, I'm going to pay you. And,
right.
And, like really?
Right. Like those little things that people don't think about are actually really big to a lot of people.
Yes.
Well, last question then. I mean, if you did lose it all, right, today, what would you do?
So, you know, I think about that. I think about that. You know, there was a time I thought about it a lot, but it just takes a couple of deals to go bad, and your cash flow is getting gobbled up, and it could happen to any of us.
Yes.
Really, could happen to any of us. So you never want to be so bold as to say, you know, I'm invincible, because we're really not, and you can miscalculate. And so, you know, what would I do? I don't know. Like, I don't think it would be a quick process if I was having trouble. It would be a very slow process if I was having trouble. And I think people would figure it out and know about it. And I think during that time, I would have to devise an exit strategy and a plan to probably stay in the business in a different capacity, because I do enjoy it, and I do like what I do. So, you know, it wouldn't be just as like I'm not an overnight success. I probably wouldn't be an overnight failure either.
There you go. Right? Yeah, you don't want that. Yeah,
don't want that, right? But if some things just didn't go well and didn't go as planned, you know, and you just said, look, this isn't for me anymore. You know, I would reach out to those people that I do trust and I do value, and you know, see what my options were. And you know, you can't be afraid to change, right? You can't be afraid to try something else and change, because sometimes that's where some of the great stuff comes from, is to get outside of that comfort zone. And on a more positive note, even now I do that. So I'm constantly challenged to push outside of what we do. Don't just stay stuck in the same old thing. Let's look at it differently. And maybe that fresh approach and trying different things keeps you from the risk. And a friend of mine, who the guy I was telling you about, that it's nice to be able to pick up the phone. He said to me one day, he goes, we digest, some people that you have a job, you worry about that losing your job, right? It's like, I just lose my job, what am I going to do? Well, we digest that every day.
Right.
Our job, right? I mean, every day in little bits and pieces, we're digesting that concept every day. And it's not like it's one big, hey, you show up on Monday morning and go, you don't have a job anymore. You're like, now what am I going to do? We think about it constantly. We're reevaluating constantly. What are we spending? What are we making? What decisions are we making? How are we growing? Are we shrinking? So that process, you're constantly internalizing. And so, I'm never afraid of not working but it's like, where is it changing? And so that process of me digesting failure, because not everything is a success. So that process of digesting that failure along the way, I think you just learn to live with a level of that and then get past it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I've thought about it, where it's like, and Ray Dalio says, if you're not worried, then you should probably worry.
Yes, exactly. Right. I worry.
Right.
I worry, right? I worry. I look at the bills and I'm like, okay, well, I hope I hope I didn't miscalculate on that one, but I worry. And even when things are good and property we've owned for years and stuff comes up and capital improvements, always pause for reevaluation. Always pause and always time to say, maybe we need to do this differently. Maybe we shouldn't be in this project anymore. We have a couple now that, we're I don't want to say losing interest in, but we've changed. And so they just might not be good for us anymore.
Right.
And, so you have to be willing to say, okay, well, they're not good for us anymore. So let's move out of those and let's move into something that's more interesting for us now.
Right.
Or more right sized or whatever it is. But you just can't be afraid of that thought process.
Yeah, I think having the honest conversations and having real honest conversations, really looking at the numbers, really talking to the partners involved, and making the decisions that are going to be best for, hey, this is our next step. This is where we want to go. So are these types of properties, or is this type of business kind of weighing us down?
Correct. Very important. Very important. And those situations don't present themselves overnight. You don't just wake up and go, oh my God, I got it. I'm selling that property. It never really happens like that. It happens through a process where you start realizing it's a cycle or it's something else. And you're like, I got to get out of this. And what's causing this? What's the root of this? There it is. That needs to go.
As we're talking, it's just so good that you can talk to, and this is why podcasts are so great. This is why I love this. This is why I love doing this show, is that I can talk to somebody who I aspire to be and do what you're doing. And we all have, it's not like you're a different guy. You're not a different human. We all have these human basic thoughts, feelings, we're all going through something. And you don't get to do this though with your neighbor or your family member, because they don't necessarily know, nor do they maybe care, right, about real estate the same way or business the same way. But that's why it's just so good to hear it from someone like you, and for my people listening and for my friends listening and my family listening. It's like, hey, this is what it takes.
There's a lot of alligators in the pond.
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
It is what it is.
You got to figure out how you're going to get across the pond, and there's risk. And it's not void of risk. Even when you're done and stabilized and working and feeling like everything's good, it's not void of risk.
Right.
And you just have to always be aware of that, and in a fun way, not to weigh you down, but just be proactive. And if you're thinking about something, if your gut tells you something that might be a problem, pay attention to it, right? Get over there and look at it, put your eyes on it, call somebody. I've gotten better at that over the years.
Yeah. And it's something that you always constantly want to make sure you're on top of. And then it's really, That's the deal, guys. If you're going from residential or you're starting residential, just that even alone, you need to be on top of. But when you're making the change from residential to commercial, it's never ending. It's still the business. Don't treat it like a hobby. Make sure that you consistently look at it as a business.
Like a business. Get in there and treat it like a business.
Get in and treat it like a business. Todd, if there's, is there anywhere that people may have questions about leasing, or if they're looking for information on, you know, maybe you, or if they have a question about, hey, I got this large property that I may be interested in selling, how can people maybe find you if they would like to?
Listen, our website, metrofalls.com. We're right there. You can go to our website. You know, I've got a link to my email. My wife, everybody working for me is on there. And you know, a list of our properties. We highlight some of them. We don't highlight all of them, but you know, a list of what we do and a little bit about us. So very easy. We're very accessible.
Very very nice of you to come on the show. I really appreciate it. And for those listening, that's R2C Residential Commercial, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Marty.
Thanks, Todd. Thank you for tuning into the Marty Grisani Show. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, leave us an honest rating and review. If you're on Spotify, make sure you follow us for weekly episodes.